Chris Jericho defeats Konosuke Takeshita at DDT Pro Wrestling in Japan in Jericho's first match in Japan in close to 4 years. And after the match, despite being on rival sides in AEW, the two men shake hands. Details on that. Plus, Adam Copeland teams up with Sting and Darby Allin to successfully win their first time teaming up on AEW Collision last night. The Continental Classic is announced by AEW President Tony Khan to be culminating at the World's End pay-per-view. And the tournament will also feature none other than Bryan Danielson as he recovers from his orbital bone injury. Several title matches have been announced for AEW Full Gear next weekend. A stipulation has been added to Hangman Adam Page versus Swerve Strickland. CJ Perry is seemingly officially Andrade El Idolo's new manager. That was revealed last night on Collision. Rush and Dralistico successfully team up on Collision last night. Plus, Logan Paul shouts out Dominic Mysterio at the UFC. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling. Let's start off talking about Chris Jericho and his return to Japan. This took place earlier today. Chris Jericho managed to defeat Konosuke Takeshita during the latest DDT Pro Wrestling event, that being DDT Ultimate Party 2023. Now, Jericho returned to Japan to make his debut, actually, in the ring of DDT Pro, which is an important, well-followed Japanese promotion. It's churned out the likes of Konosuke Takeshita, Kota Ibushi, Kenny Omega, and others, so it has strong links with AEW. Now, this was the latest show, DDT Ultimate Party, and featured several big matches. Jericho was greeted by the audience in Japan as a legend. He entered the arena to his trademark Judas theme song and actually had the Japanese audience screaming and singing the song at the top of their lungs as well. Jericho then went on to have what critics are calling a very strong match against Konosuke Takeshita, and in the end, Jericho got the victory by putting Takeshita into the walls of Jericho, which Takeshita eventually tapped out too. Now, it was actually quite a hard-hitting back-and-forth battle where both men used a real variety in their arsenal. As I mentioned, it was Jericho in the end who picked up the victory via submission. But what was quite interesting, as I mentioned though, was after the matches, Jericho extended out his hand to the member of the Don Callis family and Takeshita shook his hand. Now, it must be said, we don't really know if this is going to have any bearing on anything in terms of AEW context or storyline. They haven't really promoted this match that much on AEW television, so we don't know if it's going to be referenced in the Like a Dragon street fight on AEW Dynamite this coming week, live on Dynamite in California. If we get any more details on that, we'll let you know. As far as Jericho's trip to Japan, it's been a while since Jericho has competed in any Japanese promotion or in any Japanese matches over there. The last match that Jericho competed in Japan was for New Japan Pro Wrestling. That was at Wrestle Kingdom 14 in the Tokyo Dome. It was actually on January 5th, 2020. So we're looking at, again, nearly 4 years since Jericho has competed in Japan. Now he has, and he defeated Takeshita. What are your thoughts on the outcome? What are your thoughts on Jericho and Konosuke Takeshita shaking hands after the match? Is that interesting to you? Do you think it's going to have any bearing on anything to do with AEW? Let me know your thoughts about it in the comments section below. Now let's talk about AEW Collision last night because it featured the first time ever teaming in trios competition of Sting, Darby Allin and Adam Copeland ahead of their big match that is coming up at Full Gear next weekend. Now during the main event of AEW Collision, the trio of Adam Copeland, Darby Allin and Sting took on the Righteous and Lance Archer with Jake the Snake Roberts in their corner ahead of the big Full Gear match next weekend. While the trio of Sting, Copeland, and Darby will team together at Full Gear, they will face Christian Cage, Nick Wayne, and Luchasaurus, with Nigel McGuinness granting Cage's trio a new nickname. Numerous times on commentary, the group was referred to as the Patriarchy. Now, while it could just be an ad-lib added by McGuinness, it was notable that it was done multiple times and with emphasis. Copeland, Sting, and Darby did defeat Archer and the Righteous on last night's show. Now, Collision was actually pre-taped on Friday after a live AEW Rampage, so there was time to remove bits and pieces if they wanted to or anything like that, but nevertheless, that bit was left in, so it looks like that could possibly be the new name for Sting's, for Christian Cage's rather, faction. What are your thoughts on the Patriarchy being the name for that? Now, it was a busy night for the Patriarchy as well because Nick Wayne was also in action. accompanied by Luchasaurus and the TNT champion Christian Cage. Nick Wayne took on Dalton Castle, who had the boys at ringside in his corner. In the end, it was Nick Wayne who picked up the victory, his first singles win on AEW television, as the trio heads to the big match at Full Gear. So the question then becomes, what do you think is going to be the outcome? What did you think of the trios match? What did you think of Nick Wayne's victory on AEW Collision last night? And who do you think is going to win at Full Gear? Let me know your thoughts about that too in the comments section below. Now, a big announcement coming out of Collision last night, which people didn't know about, even though it was pre-taped, was the Continental Classic Tournament, which will culminate in December at the World's End pay-per-view. And it will also feature the return of the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, despite some concern if Danielson was going to be back to compete against Kazuchika Okada at Wrestle Kingdom for New Japan in January. Bryan Danielson actually is going to be back way sooner than that. He's going to be wrestling pretty soon. He's going to be wrestling throughout, I guess, the remainder of this month as well as December. Now, during Saturday's episode of AEW Collision, AEW CEO Tony Khan and Bryan Danielson were backstage to announce that Danielson was, going to be at next year's AEW All-In event at London's Wembley Stadium in England, as well as the Continental Classic Tournament. Danielson was named as the first and only entrant so far for the 12-man round-robin tournament, which will kick off during the November 22 episode of AEW Dynamite. Danielson has been out of action due to a broken orbital bone. The injury happened after he was hit with an Orange Punch and Rainmaker during the tag team match against AEW International Champion Orange Cassidy and New Japan star Kazuchika Okada on the October 25 episode of Dynamite. At least that's what they've said in storyline. In reality, the injury actually happened a few days earlier when Danielson was taking on Andrade El Idolo on an episode of AEW Collision in what was described as a freak accident. When they went to lock up, Andrade's elbow forearm hit Danielson in the eye, which caused the injury which he had surgery on recently. Now, back to Danielson and AEW All-In 2024. The Blackpool Combat Club member had to, of course, miss this year's event at Wembley Stadium due to a broken arm that happened in June at Forbidden Door against, who else? Kazuchika Okada. So, Tony Khan saying he is going to be at next year's events, but I guess anything can happen between now and then, so we'll have to wait and see. He was meant to be at this year's event, but injury ruled him out. Here's hoping that's not the case this time around next year. Now, the Continental Classic Tournament will end at the AEW World's End pay-per-view on December 30. The pay-per-view will be taking place at the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum in Long Island, New York. So fans, will have to wait for the tournament to start and the World's End event for its conclusion. They won't have to wait long for the Full Gear pay-per-view, which is next Saturday, November 18. John Moxley is the only member of the Blackpool Combat Club that will be in action at Full Gear for now. He's going to be facing the aforementioned Orange Cassidy for the AEW International Championship at the event. What are your thoughts on this tournament? I guess AEW's version of a G1 climax. What are your thoughts on Danielson being back for it? And who do you think wins the tournament? And what else would you add to it to even raise the stakes? Is it just enough to win the tournament, or should there be a prize at the end of it as well? Let me know your thoughts about that. Speaking of Full Gear, several title matches have been announced for next weekend's pay-per-view. Following Saturday's edition of Collision, 2 multi-person title matches are now official for next weekend's Full Gear event. AEW Tag Team Champions Ricky Starks and Big Bill will put their titles on the line in a 4-way match featuring former champions FTR, in addition to the House of Black's Malachi Black and Brody King, and LFI's Roosh and Preston Vance. This will be FTR's first title shot at the title since losing them to Starks and Bill recently. Both the House of Black and LFI will be looking for their first AEW Tag Team titles reign. The other title match will see TBS champion Chris Statlander against past title challenger Julia Hart, and the winner of this Wednesday's Dynamite match between Red Velvet and Sky Blue. Hart defeated Willow Nightingale on Collision to earn her slot in the newly announced title bout. Statlander will be looking for the 15th defense of the gold she won back in May's Double or Nothing event. Hart, Velvet, and Blue are still looking for their first AEW title of any kind. So 2 more title matches announced for next weekend. Now, one match we knew was announced, but it now has a new stipulation on. It's Hangman Adam Page versus Swerve Strickland. This one has been very personal, and because of that, we've got a big stipulation that could get pretty damn violent. The rematch between former AEW World Champion Hangman Page and Swerve Strickland at next Saturday's Full Gear will now be a Texas death match. In a fiery promo, Page issued the proclamation during Saturday's edition of Collision. The stipulation was made after Strickland and Prince Nana broke into Page's house on a recent episode of Dynamite, with Page exacting some revenge this past Wednesday with an attack that saw him hit Strickland with a deadeye through a table off the stage. The two squared off for the first time at October's Wrestle Dream pay-per-view, with Strickland getting the victory thanks to hitting Page with Nana's crown. Page and Strickland have been feuding ever since. Now, Page has been involved in 3 Texas death matches in his AEW tenure and is actually 3-0 against Lance Archer, Adam Cole, Jon Moxley. Well, this will be Swerve Strickland's first. Of course, it's a case where you have to get back to your feet before the count of 10. It's essentially a bit like a last man standing match. Now, CJ Perry seemingly is now the manager of Andrade El Idolo in All Elite Wrestling. On last night's airing of the pre-taped edition of AEW Collision, the mystery, I guess, has had the answer revealed, possibly after a series of backstage segments wondering whether or not Andrade El Idolo would accept the managerial services of the hot and flexible wife of Miro, CJ Perry. We now have the answer. Accompanying Andrade to the ring for his match against Daniel Garcia, she was at ringside throughout, cheering Andrade on. During the match, Daniel Garcia also danced in front of her, to which she returned the favor. So if things didn't work out with Andrade, perhaps she could move on to him. In the end, perhaps the ringside support was beneficial as Andrade picked up the victory over Garcia via submission. Miro, at the end of it, was shown briefly watching on from backstage, but he didn't get involved beyond that. But we still don't really know where this storyline is going. Some people have speculated that despite CJ Perry looking to manage people other than Miro, it's actually a perverse way of trying to cheer Miro on and actually inspire him, perhaps. We'll have to wait and see how this one plays out, certainly. Now, Rouge and Dralistico teamed up last night successfully on AEW Collision. For the first time in AEW, it was just Rouge and Dralistico in a tag team match taking on the Workhorsemen, with their brother Dragon Lee appearing on SmackDown on Friday and picking up another victory over Cedric Alexander. His real-life brothers also secured a victory. In the end, Rouge and Dralistico defeated JD Drake and Anthony Henry to pick up the win. After the match, a video played featuring the House of Black confronting seemingly LFI, but also perhaps FTR as well. As I mentioned, this now leads into that tag team title match that's going to be taking place at Full Gear. So LFI getting a victory on AEW Collision last night. Finally, Logan Paul, the brand new United States champion. He's been a busy guy recently, appearing in boxing rings, wrestling rings, and now he was actually cage-side at a UFC event last night as well. Logan Paul attended UFC 295. United States champion Logan Paul attended UFC 295 at Madison Square Garden. And during the event, he held up his phone for a message that read, "Shout out Dominic Mysterio." Now, if you can see the picture on the screen right now, you would see that's not actually how Dominic Mysterio spells his name. However, with the holiday season upon us, it's important to remind everyone it's the thought that counts. Now, Logan Paul defeated Dominic Mysterio's father, Rey Mysterio, at Crown Jewel to capture his first championship in WWE, with Dom not being shy about his issues with his father and his upbringing. Surely, he will overlook this spelling mishap from Paul for the purposes of the greater good. So, do you think this is maybe an indication of more to come when it comes to possibly Dominic Mysterio and Logan Paul? Do you think it's just, again, a fun shout-out, a nice little thing by Logan Paul? Let me know your thoughts about that. Now, in the past, Logan has spoken about wanting to form a tag team with the young Mysterio, but we'll have to wait and see indeed if that happens. WWE and UFC are now merged under one corporate umbrella, that being TKO Group Holdings, actually under the Endeavor umbrella. Obviously, it's a case which Logan Paul, a WWE champion, is sitting cage side or octagon side at a UFC event, but actually they're both under that TKO umbrella. So there you go. But there you go, guys. That's the latest pro wrestling news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.